After planning an amazing celebration for my husband's raise, I discovered an unexpected truth. Sarah adjusted the final decoration over the dining table, her heart racing with excitement. She had planned everything down to the last detail for Mike's surprise celebration, a culmination of dreams they once thought would remain elusive. Her mind flashed back to their cramped apartment, nights spent whispering plans and worries, always with that undercurrent of hope. But now, after years of struggle, a promotion at a prestigious architecture firm was Mike's ticket to something more, something they had fought so hard for. Yet, just as anticipation filled the rooms of their cozy home, Sarah stumbled upon a hidden notebook in the home office, one that threatened to unravel the carefully woven tapestry of happiness she'd crafted. A rush of adrenaline coursed through her veins as she flipped through the pages of intricate sketches and detailed notes. Her excitement morphed into confusion when she realized that these designs were not only brilliant, but far more than what Mike had openly shared about his job. Did he ever mention late nights and project proposals that he had been quietly battling for, only for others to take credit? A pit formed in her stomach. The happiness she had meticulously curated started to feel precarious, as if the ground beneath her feet could give way at any moment. As her thoughts spiraled, she found herself paralyzed with a moral dilemma. Confronting Mike with the reality alighting within her could shatter the moment she had worked so hard to create. Did she truly understand the sacrifices he had made? Would revealing the deceit, the apparent favoritism at his workplace jeopardize everything they had built together? Their children were bouncing around, ecstatic for their dad's celebration. Would she be stealing joy from them, too? Her mind raced through their emotional journey, the trial and error of budgeting, sleepless nights, and the love that persevered through it all. Yet there, tucked within a book of dreams and aspirations, lay a truth that twisted her insides into knots. She could feel the tension mount between loyalty and justice. They were about to face a reckoning at their own festivity. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As laughter erupted in the living room, a stark juxtaposition unfolded within her. Friends, those who had stood beside them through rain and shine, cheered Mike on, each toast intended to celebrate the success he may not genuinely own. Sarah's hands trembled as she served drinks, observing Mike's joy radiating through the atmosphere. It made her heart ache. This triumph felt tainted now, a facade reinforced by what appeared to be lies woven around him. In that very moment, the weight of her internal turmoil escalated. Could she truly be silent? Would allowing everyone to celebrate Mike's moment of achievement mean squashing the heartache of his struggles? As she caught his eye, she saw nothing but pride and happiness reflected back, blinding her to the storm where integrity and affection clashed violently within her. Time felt suspended, anticipation and dread spiraled together, creating an explosive tension that threatened to eclipse the celebration. What would happen when the music faded? Would love prevail, or would the truth, stifled in fear and loyalty, corrupt the very foundation of their family? Sarah stood at a precipice, on the brink of an unknown destiny, with no clear path but a pulse pounding at her temples. The room filled with joyous, clinking glasses, but in her heart, a tempest raged. The moment hung thick in the air as Sarah locked eyes with Mike, who was sharing a laugh with their friends, oblivious to the chaos within her. She felt like a ghost drifting through a celebration meant for a man she was starting to question. Each clink of the glasses felt like a bell tolling for decisions yet to be made, and every cheerful voice threatened to drown out the urgent whispers in her mind. Her heart pounded as she maneuvered through the gathering, pretending to be engaged while her thoughts spiraled deeper into the mire of doubt. Mike had always been steadfast, a beacon of hope after storms they had weathered together, yet now she wondered how much she really knew him. Had he been artfully concealing just how much he had to fight for his position? What did his silence say about the man she thought she understood so completely? Pushing through the thrumming anxiety, she returned to the dining table, brushing her fingers over the pristine cloth. It served as a reminder of the life they had crafted together, a life built on shared dreams, but those dreams suddenly felt marred by this new information. Did she have the right to question the undercurrents shaping their reality? As the evening wore on, the exuberance around her deepened her sense of isolation. The laughter grew louder, the conversations more animated, yet she felt shackled by an invisible weight. Sarah's mind wrestled with the mounting pressure to speak up, to shatter the illusion, versus the instinctive urge to soothe, to maintain this fragile happiness for her family and friends. Deciding to vent her frustration, she slipped away to the back porch, seeking a moment to breathe. The cool air brushed against her skin, a stark contrast to the warm chaos inside. She leaned against the railing, staring at the stars piercing the night sky, each twinkling point standing in defiance of the tumult pointlessly swirling inside her. In that moment, Sarah felt the stirrings of something else than assertiveness rising to the surface. How long had she played the role of the supportive wife while Mike wrestled with shadows unshared? As she pondered their journey, she recalled her own struggles for validation, the silent yearning to be more than just a supportive figure in the background while Mike pursued his dreams. What if it was time for her voice to emerge, to take on a more substantial role, not only in their family but also in her own life? The truth she had uncovered shared a heavier weight than she realized. She was standing at a crossroads that extended well beyond Mike's hidden sketches. She could embrace this moment as an opportunity. Perhaps confronting Mike would not only bring clarity about his deception, but also ignite her own ambition. In this chaos, she began to sense her own professional aspirations flickering like a flame long snuffed out. Just then, the sound of the celebration shifted. It grew more animated, punctuated by cheers, forcing her to make a choice. Sarah could either retreat deeper into doubt or charge forward, embracing the truth with Mike and confronting the reality of their lives head-on. Determined, she took a deep breath and stepped back inside, ready to navigate the difficult conversations awaiting her. Before she could reach Mike, however, the door crashed open and their neighbor, Dan, stumbled in with a wildly smug grin on his face. "You won't believe what I just heard about Mike's management team." Every part of Sarah's being tensed, knowing that this throwaway phrase could either spark revelation or stir a pot of complications she was not yet ready to untangle. Her heart raced anew, and as she met Mike's bewildered gaze across the room, she knew they were both about to face something much more significant than an evening full of toasts. What lay ahead would redefine their journey together forever. As Sarah's stomach knotted at Dan's interruption, she felt a rising tide of tension. Time slowed, and she desperately wished to swipe the mocking grin off his face, to burst the bubble of mirth that seemed to cocoon Mike while the rest of the world remained oblivious. What had been a celebration of Mike's achievements now appeared to pivot on a precipice, teetering between truth and deception. "Dan, can we keep it down?" she said, her voice barely masking the urgency beneath her civility. Once, she might have relished the playful banter that typically flowed between their families, but now it felt like poison swirling in her veins. Dan waved her off, obliviously pressing on. "Seriously, you'll want to hear this." Apparently, they've been struggling to hold on to their top clients, and is this really the time? Sarah interrupted, heat crawling up her neck. She didn't appreciate the posturing, nor did she want the spotlight turned on her family. What other truths lay hidden beneath their lives? As the caustic undercurrent of Dan's revelations began to seep into her thoughts, Sarah's resolve firmed. This wasn't about keeping up appearances anymore. "What is he talking about?" Mike turned to her, curiosity and something darker swimming in his eyes. For a fleeting moment, it felt as if she were staring into an abyss. What answers awaited her on the other side? "Just some gossip, I'm sure," she floundered, wanting nothing more than to shield Mike, yet recognizing the walls she'd built around him were suffocating them both. A rush of emotions coursed through her. She had felt so energized only moments ago, but now the dissonance between the woman she was becoming and the woman she'd been stifled her. "Why don't you ask him yourself?" Dan quipped, smirking. A predator might as well have bounded into the room, its fangs ready to rip apart her carefully constructed facade. Mike's expression shifted, subtly yet unmistakably. She could see cracks forming, and with those cracks came opportunities and opening for confrontation or healing. "If you know something, Mike, I'd like to hear it," she said, her voice steadier now, a sound of steel wrapped in silk. She needed to pull back the curtain whether or not he was prepared. Mike hesitated, the tension building like distorting glass under heat. The confidence that usually spread across his face faltered, making room for an uncertainty that quickly morphed into defensive silence. Was it shame? Fear? She couldn't decipher it, and that frustrated her as much as it filled her with apprehension. "Dan, thanks for your insight," Sarah said, her teeth clenched. She made a half-hearted attempt to smile at him before flicking her gaze back to Mike. "What is going on? What is really happening at your job?" Caught off guard, he stammered, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, as if retreating into a fortress where he could hide. The merry laughter from within the house felt like the world's worst soundtrack to a rocky emotional terrain. The smiles echoed as reminders of a simplicity that now felt far removed from reality. "Sarah, we can talk about this later," Mike replied, his voice low, but she caught the trace of indignation in his tone. She bit her lip, confused by the deflection. "No, we can't." "Not anymore," she pressed, each word punctuated with a resolve she hadn't known she possessed. It was thoroughly new territory for her. She would not be relegated to the background in their lives and ambitions any longer. With her heart racing and head spinning, she recognized this moment would mark a turning point, but how the declaration would manifest remained to be seen. A quiet resolve settled upon her, but with it came a relentless question. What if confronting Mike meant uncovering hidden truths about their relationship she wasn't ready to face? As the distraction of their neighbor fizzled into the backdrop of the moment, Sarah felt the world narrow down to just the two of them. Determined but fearful, she breathed deeply and prepared to illuminate truths that would redefine everything. Yet as she began to speak, the room dimmed and Dan, with an enthusiastic interruption, turned the wheels of fate once more. "Did you hear who they're targeting for the management team?" In that pivotal moment, as uncertainty swirled in their space, Sarah wondered if she was ready to tackle the intricacies of Mike's world and her own ambitions in tandem. The time had come to face the truths that lay ahead, but what would happen when any clarity she sought could lead to more questions than answers? The laughter around them dulled as Sarah's focus sharpened on Mike, the air thick with unsaid words. She needed to break through the veil that seemed to shroud him, to yank at the fabric of unspoken limitations woven into their lives. It was no longer just about the celebration. It was about exposure of fears, failures, and perhaps even buried ambitions. "Mike, look at me," she said, forcing him to meet her gaze. The moment felt suspended in time, their surroundings fading away until it was just them, standing at the brink of revelation. "You can talk to me. Whatever it is, we can face it together." He shifted uncomfortably, the tension between them pulsating like a live wire. "It's complicated, Sarah. It's not the right time." "The right time for what?" She shot back, the frustration undermining her resolve. "To pretend everything is fine and dandy when it's not? You can't hide behind polite smiles and corporate jargon forever." His expression melted into confusion, a fleeting sense of irritation crossing his features before he glanced at Dan, suddenly wary. But Sarah didn't care about Dan anymore. This was about dismantling the walls that had formed around Mike, the walls Sarah had inadvertently helped build. The way he carried the weight of his circumstances was becoming unbearable to her. "Why is it so hard for you to open up?" She pressed, her voice low yet brimming with unyielding intensity. "We've always shared everything." "Because it's all a mess," he replied, the frustration in his voice rising, punctuated by a solitary laugh that lacked any real humor. "The company is struggling, I might get demoted, and I don't want you to see me like this." Each word struck her like a hammer, fracturing the ideal image she had of their life together. The steady progress he had once seemed to be making was now slipping through his fingers, and she felt a surge of empathy tugging at her heart. He was afraid not of her reaction, but of the reality that lay before him. Mike, we're a team. You don't have to shoulder it all alone. You deserve to share these burdens with me. I want to help, she pleaded, the urgency of the moment clawing at her insides. He finally sank into the nearest chair, the fight visibly leaving his posture. I'm scared, okay? I've always been the breadwinner, and now it feels like everything is falling apart. I can't let you see me fail. The admission cracked open something inside her. Here was Mike, exposed in a way she'd never witnessed before, and with it came an undeniable truth. Their dynamics were shifting, and she had the power to reshape it for the better. Failing doesn't make you less of a man, she said softly, slowly walking toward him. In fact, it makes you courageous, braver than anyone who pretends everything is perfect. You can't always be strong, you were never meant to be. As the words hung in the air, she noticed a flicker of gratitude in his eyes, a crack in the stoic facade he had worn for too long. It was a moment of transition, the air thickening with a poignant realization that they could redefine what strength looked like in their relationship. Maybe we need to be vulnerable together, he murmured, finally allowing himself a moment of true clarity. But I don't know how to start. Her pulse quickened with a newfound energy. They stood at the beginning of a path she could help illuminate. We can start right here. Each step will teach us how to navigate our fears together. No more secrets, Mike. We must confront this together. In that instant, something shifted between them, an unspoken promise echoing in the air. But as Sarah observed the glimmer of hope in his eyes, her thoughts darted back to Dan's previous comments. Perhaps there lay a more significant challenge ahead. The tones of laughter faded into a distant murmur around them, presenting a compelling distraction. But as Sarah prepared to embrace this new, uncharted territory with Mike, she felt an uneasy weight at the back of her mind. Was she truly ready to face whatever lay beyond their vulnerabilities? The thought nestled itself deep. What if Dan's revelations about the company weren't the only truths waiting to be unearthed? As she met Mike's gaze, a new sense of urgency ignited. What awaited them both in the labyrinth of corporate struggles and personal growth? The faint buzz of laughter continued to linger around them, but for Sarah, the world had narrowed to nothing but Mike's shifting gaze and the tumult of emotions coursing between them. In that moment, clarity collided with dread. She was acutely aware that while they might have unlocked the door to vulnerability, the journey inside would be fraught with unforeseen obstacles. Okay, she said, inhaling deeply, let's take it one step at a time. Leaning forward, she realized she had to establish a plan not just for how to support Mike, but for her own growth as well. The weight of uncharted territory loomed over both of them. What's next for you? She asked, her tone shifting from urgency to genuine curiosity. Mike looked somewhat taken aback, a shadow of confusion passing over his features. What do you mean? I mean, if they do demote you, what is your plan? Just sitting here and stressing about it won't help, she asserted, her voice gently probing. He opened his mouth to respond, hesitated, and then shut it again. For all the walls he had built around himself, this was about dismantling his self-imposed limitations. Sarah wasn't letting him slide back into passivity. I haven't thought about it, he finally admitted, his eyes drifting toward the floor. It's been hard just getting through each day. When did we stop being proactive? She challenged softly. You were always the master strategist in the office. Just like you planned for that promotion anniversary surprise at work, we can plan a strategy for this too. You can't be reactive. That fuels the fear. The moment swelled with unanticipated empowerment. Mike straightened slightly, the weight on his shoulders flickering with an ember of resolve. You're right. It's just, I feel like I'm in this fog and I can't see through to the other side. Let us break it down, Sarah suggested, feeling her heart race with excitement. What skills do you have? Where are there gaps you could fill? As each question fell from her lips, Mike's defenses began to crumble. He unfolded his arms, taking a deep breath that made it feel like they were doing mental gymnastics. Well, I've always loved the creative aspects of my work. Handling presentations, strategizing campaigns, why not tap into that? Use your ingenuity, she interjected. What about proposing a project that revitalizes the team's focus? Something that empowers your colleagues, showcases your strengths? The notion sparked something in him, an idea that seemed to anchor them both. She watched a shift in his demeanor as it dawned on him that every obstacle could just as easily be turned into an opportunity. Imagination mingled with determination, and Sarah felt pride swell inside her. There's a chance to build something new instead of just surviving this demotion. What about an initiative that showcases everyone's strengths, not just yours? I could pitch it, he said slowly, a hesitant smile breaking through. I always thought they saw me as just a number. Maybe if I engage everyone, I can change that perception. Absolutely, Sarah affirmed, feeling a surge of adrenaline. Your value is not dictated by a title. Focus on your skills, rally the team around a common vision, and you'll create something worth fighting for. For the first time in what felt like a long while, a spark lit Mike's eyes. The gust of hopeful energy felt electric, an ember of ambition evolving amidst the shadows of fear. What would have previously seemed like an insurmountable challenge now morphed into an adventure they could undertake together. But just as Sarah was about to express her excitement, the ambience shifted again, a stark reminder of the impending turmoil. Her phone vibrated sharply in her pocket, a message lighting up the screen. Urgent meeting requested by Dan for tomorrow. We need to discuss immediate actions regarding departmental restructuring. Panic sliced through her earlier excitement, jolting her back to the present. They weren't merely dealing with personal vulnerabilities. The stakes were escalating in the professional realm as well. Was it truly the right moment to propose ambition when the corporate groundwork felt so unstable? Sarah? Mike's voice pulled her from tumultuous thoughts. She glanced at him, sensing the storm that lay ahead. Tomorrow's meeting, her voice trailed off uncertainly. Something's about to change, isn't it? He asked with a sober intensity. She nodded slowly, realizing their journey was only just beginning. What if the real test lay not just in Mike's ability to confront fears, but in her own ability to stand resolute in an uncertain corporate landscape? The air bristled with uncertainty, laden with the promise of revelations to come. Tomorrow might prove to be more than just an appointment in the calendar for all of them. The morning arrived with a sense of heaviness that seemed to infiltrate the office long before the first meeting of the day. Sarah navigated through a crowded hallway, her heart pounding in rhythm with the muffled conversations that echoed off the walls. A mixture of anxiety and excitement swirled within her, the urgency of the upcoming meeting blending candidly with the notion that today might shift not only Mike's trajectory, but her own as well. As she entered the conference room, she observed her colleagues gathered around the table, expressions painted with uncertainty. Dan's authoritative presence commanded the space, hinting at the weighty news they were about to receive. Sarah's chest tightened. It was time to face the reality of the restructuring and all the implications it held. Thanks for joining on such short notice, Dan began, his voice cutting through the tension. I want to talk about our department's future and how we can adapt to the upcoming changes from upper management. Her mind was a cacophony of thoughts, each colliding with the next. Would they be losing key team members? Would Mike remain in the game, his newfound spark doused before it even ignited? As Dan outlined the operational shifts, mentioning projected downsizing and the need for restructuring initiatives, her thoughts shifted from concern for Mike to her own professional path. Just as they were teasing out potential new roles and responsibilities, Sarah's fingers tingled with an urge to break the silence. Her own fears simmered beneath the surface, but if Mike was stepping up to propose an initiative, then she couldn't remain passive. The moment was ripe for engagement, for assertiveness. Is there a plan in place to re-engage the team during this transition? She interjected, her voice steady despite the turbulence within. We should look at ways to harness our collective strengths while navigating these changes. After all, employee morale is critical during restructuring. The room froze for a moment, all eyes shifting to her. Dan raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise briefly breaking through his composed demeanor. That's an interesting point, Sarah. We haven't really focused on a morale-building initiative. What do you propose? A rush of adrenaline propelled her aspirations forward. She was no longer just supporting Mike's revival, but stepping into her own light. We could implement a collaborative project, something that emphasizes teamwork and creativity, showcasing what each team member brings to the table. It would not only boost morale, but empower everyone to contribute to our collective success. A murmur of agreement spread through the room alongside nervous glances. She was aware that stepping into this role could be a double-edged sword. Would she be met with skepticism or welcomed with open arms? I appreciate your proactive take, Sarah. Let us explore that idea further, Dan replied cautiously, noting the growing enthusiasm among their colleagues. As discussions shifted into brainstorming possibilities, Sarah felt a new sense of clarity. The very fear that once held her back transformed into a catalyst for ambition. Today was not merely about survival, it was about setting the stage for something bigger. It wasn't just Mike who needed a chance to rise. She too had untapped potential waiting to be voiced. However, as the meeting adjourned, an unsettling tension returned. Visions of the impending changes loomed over her mind like a storm cloud, and she was acutely aware that not all ideas would be welcomed. What if her proposal faced resistance from those threatened by the shifting landscape? Would her initiative bolster her standing or harm her credibility? Mike caught her eye as they walked out together, his expression a blend of admiration and uncertainty. That was bold, he remarked, a hint of awe in his voice. Bold or reckless? She retorted, feeling her heart race in the wake of her decision. What if it backfires? What if they see it as a threat? We can't afford to think that way, he replied firmly, embers of resolve still glowing within him. You're onto something important, and we can't ignore that just because of the fear of failure. As the chatter of colleagues faded around them, Sarah contemplated his words. Today had been a step forward, but what lay ahead was a battlefield of validation, a series of obstacles intertwined with newfound ambitions. Would they both find the strength to advance against the tide? The atmosphere crackled with unspoken possibilities and undeniable peril, propelling her forward into the unknown. The reality took hold in stark clarity. Tomorrow's choices may be more than just about Mike's initiative, but her own legacy and the fight for her place in a corporate landscape now riddled with uncertainty. Are you ready for the battle? Mike's question lingered in the air, a challenge she couldn't back down from. With her heart racing and a newfound sense of purpose ignited, she met his gaze. Let us make them see us, she declared, feeling the stakes escalate as they moved into territory neither had ever dared to explore. But as they stepped into the hallway, another message buzzed through the tension, a notification glowing ominously on Sarah's screen. Urgent feedback needed on all project outlines by end of the week. Was the countdown already beginning for their initiative? The stakes had risen, and doubt began to settle in. They weren't just fighting for prominence anymore. They were navigating treacherous waters that threatened everything they had worked for. The weight of urgency cast a cloud over Sarah as she stared at her screen. The notification loomed large, a stark reminder that their ideas needed more than just enthusiasm. They needed to be fleshed out and articulated with finesse if they were to survive scrutiny. Let's find a quiet spot to hash this out, Mike suggested, noticing her furrowed brow. Sarah nodded, the adrenaline coursing through her veins igniting a fire of determination. As they settled into a corner of the cafe, the quiet buzz of chatter fading into the background, she flicked her laptop open, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Okay, let us brainstorm, she said, adrenaline propelling her as she embraced the challenge ahead. We need clear objectives. What do we want this initiative to achieve? Mike leaned closer, inspiration sparking in his eyes. We could position it around collaboration and innovation, something that would not only help morale, but also show management we're proactive. She took note of his ideas while her mind raced. What about the collective strength of the team? Yes, perhaps we could also include quarterly showcases where team members present what they've been working on. It would create accountability and highlight their contributions. The energy between them shifted into a rhythm. Every suggestion led to the next, their minds bouncing off one another like a tightly wound spring. Ideas flowed seamlessly, each one building upon the last until Sarah felt something shift within her. This was not just about survival, it was a declaration of intent. Capturing collective contributions resonated with her desire to demonstrate her own leadership potential. But doubt flickered at the edges of her resolve. Could she maintain this momentum amidst the feedback that awaited them? Sarah? Mike's voice cut through her thoughts. He studied her with curiosity. What is going on in that head of yours? She hesitated, contemplating the risk inherent in the undertaking. What if they think it's too ambitious? Too grand for the restructuring phase? Mike leaned back, reflective. Then we need to show them why it matters. Remember, this is about our growth, not just individually but as a team. His confidence was contagious, yet a lingering fear gripped her. What if they aimed too high? Was she ready to face the potential backlash? I've never led a project like this. What if I'm not up for it? Then you learn. That's how we grow, he said firmly, lifting her gaze with his own. There was an unyielding energy in his eyes that made her heartbeat thrum. Those words echoed in her mind as they fueled further brainstorming, drafting potential outlines and objectives that fleshed out their vision. Each stroke of her pen felt like an assertion of belief, a commitment she was making to herself. With every point listed, she saw the contours of her own ability take shape. However, the shadows of doubt edged closer with every keystroke. The corporate landscape could shift rapidly, a maze filled with hidden traps and unyielding expectations. What if others perceived this initiative as a challenge to their own influence? Would colleagues embrace their ideas or strike first to safeguard their positions? As they wrapped up their discussions, Sarah's mind darted to the upcoming task ahead: an actual presentation to the department. Would her words resonate? Would the support they felt in the cafe diminish under the weight of skepticism? Are you ready to dive in? Mike's question was both simple and profound, challenging her to confront her own limits. She inhaled deeply before nodding with tentative resolve, her heart thrumming with the weight of responsibility. I have to be. Their plan was developed, now crystallizing into something tangible. Yet deep within her stirred the anticipation of potential conflict, an awareness that every step could be scrutinized, judged, or neglected. Just as they stood to leave, Sarah's phone chimed again. A new message blinked on the screen. Meeting set to discuss feedback on the restructuring initiative. Prepare to present your outline. Her pulse quickened. Now it was real. The time had come to defend their ideas. Would they be ready to face those who seemed to cling tightly to the status quo? With a determined sparkle igniting in her eyes, she met Mike's gaze. It's time to lay it all on the line. But as they moved toward the door, the undercurrent of tension grew palpable. The very people she had admired and looked up to might very well be waiting to challenge her determination. Could she survive the inevitable backlash? The stakes had never been higher, and Sarah understood that nothing could be taken for granted in this volatile landscape. The real test was just beginning. The fluorescent lights of the conference room buzzed softly, amplifying the tension in the air as Sarah took her seat at the table. She was surrounded by familiar faces, colleagues who had, over time, morphed from allies into potential adversaries. Today was not just about presenting an outline. It was about bearing her ideas to the scrutiny of those who thrived in the shadows of the corporate hierarchy. As she shuffled the pages of her notes, Sarah observed the expressions of her peers. Some seemed to be engaged, leaning forward, while others sat back, arms crossed, a protective barrier against any suggestions that might disrupt the status quo. Swallowing hard, she felt her heart race. Each pulse echoed the question that had dominated her thoughts: could she hold her ground? Thank you all for joining, Greg, the department head began. His tone was authoritative, yet Sarah detected an undertone that hinted at skepticism. Today, we will hear from Sarah and Mike about their proposed restructuring initiative. As Mike introduced their vision, Sarah felt the solid framework they had crafted push against the fragility of her self-doubt. His confidence exuded an energy that enveloped her, lending her reassurance. But as he spoke, so did the voices in her head. Could their concepts truly resonate with those who preferred the comfort of familiarity over the risks of innovation? When her turn finally arrived, she stood, heart pounding, and faced the group. She glanced at her notes, but the words seemed to blur as though they were taunting her with doubts that surged from within. Clearing her throat, she began. Our initiative is about collaboration and innovation. Imagine a workspace where accountability promotes growth, where quarterly showcases highlight everyone's contributions. The room fell silent, and a weighty pause settled around her. She observed the shifting expressions, some intrigued, others unimpressed. Undeterred, she pressed on, illustrating the benefits of fostering a culture of shared success. Statistics rolled off her tongue, connecting the dots between engagement and productivity, but with every statistic she presented, a part of her felt exposed, as if her passion was laid bare for judgment. Just as the energy in the room began to shift, a hand shot up. It was Lisa, one of the senior managers known for her sharp critique. "This sounds ambitious, Sarah. But are we really prepared to take such risks when the structure of our team is already in question?" Suddenly, Sarah's stomach twisted. It felt like a challenge, and she recognized instantly the gravity of the moment. "Absolutely, Lisa. Proactivity is essential, especially in times of change. Embracing innovation can redefine our stability, rather than threatening it." The slight quiver in her voice belied the conviction of her argument, but she held her ground as Lisa continued to probe, the tension palpable. Instead of retreating, Sarah felt a flicker of determination ignite within her. In that moment, the shadows of doubt receded. Her intent to demonstrate her leadership began to take precedence over the fear of judgment. "Let us not forget," she added, her voice gaining confidence, "change can be daunting, yet it's also an opportunity for growth. If we stifle creativity now, we risk losing the very essence of our team." The room buzzed with chatter, ideas colliding as others began to chime in, whether in support or skepticism, but for Sarah, the walls of her apprehension began to crumble. Listening to her colleagues respond, she realized this wasn't merely her initiative, it was a collective dialogue ignited by their shared vision. As the meeting wrapped up, uncertainty still loomed. Questions circulated about the viability of their proposal and the future implications. Sarah felt the weight of potential failure lurking in the corners of her mind, but she had faced the scrutiny, advocated for her ideas, and sparked a conversation. Walking out, she met Mike's encouraging smile, but could still feel the underlying tension. They may have ignited the flames of a necessary discussion, but the potential backlash from the status quo would still loom large. "Whatever happens, we've made a start," Mike said, echoing her inner commitment, yet she couldn't shake the feeling of being on the verge of something monumental, teetering between triumph and turmoil. What consequences awaited them as they ventured down this path? The echoes of doubt mingled with the thrill of risk, a precarious balance that unfolded before her, the unknown beckoning as the real battle for acceptance and change began. The conversation may have started, but Sarah understood that the hard part was yet to come. How would they handle the pushback? Would they maintain their momentum, or would they falter under the weight of resistance? As they stepped into the corridor, Sarah's pulse quickened at the thought of what lay ahead. The real test was just beginning, and the outcome remained uncertain. The clang of the metallic elevator doors echoed as Sarah stepped inside, her mind racing through the implications of the day's events. Each floor that glided by felt like a countdown to the unknown, her chest tightening with the weight of potential failure and hopeful resolve. Meeting after meeting lay ahead, and every exchange could either cement her place in the team or shroud her in further doubt. With Greg's skepticism lingering, she understood all too well the necessity of crafting a detailed strategy to preemptively address potential objections and reinforce the merit of their initiative. Now, as the elevator reached the ground floor, Sarah hesitated for a moment, contemplating the trajectory of her career. Hadn't she always been the conscientious follower, the diligent worker bee? Yet at this very moment, she grasped the value that came with stepping into a leadership role. She envisioned herself not merely executing orders, but proactively shaping the company's future. Outside, the bustling city life enveloped her, each sound a faint reminder of the world beyond the corporate grind. Sarah inhaled deeply, committing to push past the echoes of doubt that had shaped her for so long. As she navigated toward her office, an idea sparked. She would gather her data differently this time. Instead of solely presenting statistics, she'd interlace anecdotes from team members' real stories that illustrated the potential benefits of their approach. These narratives could potentially transform numbers into relatable experiences, creating a compelling case for her audience. Once seated at her desk, Sarah opened her laptop and scoured her notes from the meeting. While she crafted her outline for future presentations, a familiar chime alerted her to an incoming message. It was from Mike, his words brimming with encouragement. "Hey, great job today. I really think we struck a nerve. What are your immediate thoughts moving forward?" She pondered for a moment, appreciating the weight of his inquiry. They were no longer just teammates, they were allies in uncharted waters. "I'm planning to gather more personal stories from the team. I think that might help convey our message more powerfully," she typed back, her fingers flying over the keys. The response was instantaneous. "Brilliant. Involving the team could strengthen our case. Let us meet tomorrow and brainstorm." The prospect of collaboration invigorated her, yet Sarah could not dismiss the growing pit in her stomach. What if her colleagues dismissed her ideas as naive? What if tomorrow's confrontation revealed the true depths of their skepticism? But deep inside, she recognized that encountering resistance could also refine her arguments. Later, as she prepared for bed, she mulled over the meeting. Maybe failure wouldn't mark the end of her ascent, but rather a stepping stone toward a deeper understanding of resilience. Every setback could propel her further, each moment of discouragement a teacher in disguise. As she slipped into sleep, a vision formed. She would transform into a conduit of ideas, facilitating the voices of her team, openly challenging archaic notions. And in that vulnerability lay the potential for authentic connection and collective growth. The next day arrived, but instead of feeling panic, Sarah felt the rare thrill of possibility as she envisioned a much more collaborative future. Yet within those hopes, a flicker of apprehension remained. What if her determination ignited a fierce backlash? As she walked into the office, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation, and Sarah readied herself to face whatever awaited her in the meeting room. It was time to truly confront the skeptics. Would they embrace her vision, or would she need to dig deeper to contend with the adversaries lurking just beneath the surface? Days turned into weeks, and the turmoil of the restructuring narrative began to shape the culture of the office. Sarah stood taller and more assertive every time she entered the conference room, her voice becoming a conduit for change. The stories she had gathered from colleagues painted the mundane statistics with humanity, showcasing the potential buried beneath layers of skepticism. Each presentation she delivered further solidified her resolve to redefine what success looked like in their department. Mike had taken her lead, too. She witnessed him transforming, fluidly navigating discussions, presenting innovative ideas to his managers, and even fostering a collaborative spirit among his peers. Their joint efforts began to spark a newfound enthusiasm within their team, leading to an initiative that prioritized creativity over adherence to tradition. The murmur of support rippled through the office like a refreshing breeze. With each success, Sarah realized she wasn't merely fighting for Mike. She was establishing herself a competent leader in her own right. Their proposal finally gained traction, culminating in a committee meeting where Sarah stood before management, resonating confidence that had once seemed unimaginable. "We are not just looking to survive this transition," she stated emphatically, eyes scanning the faces before her. "We are here to thrive together. This initiative is about leveraging our collective strengths and embracing innovation, a fundamental pillar in achieving a resilient work culture." A wave of mutual respect filled the room as she concluded. Kudos followed from unexpected places, even from Greg, the department head. As he nodded in approval, she felt a surge of validation wash over her, not just as Mike's partner, but as a professional who had established her own merit, parallel to her professional growth. Sarah nurtured her relationship with Mike into a transparent partnership. They forged a deeper connection through vulnerability, sharing fears and dreams, while affirming that neither had to shoulder burdens alone. They learned to articulate their aspirations, rekindling the cohesive spirit that had whiled away during life's previous challenges. The breakthrough moment occurred when Mike was officially promoted, not just as a title, but because he had taken the initiative to champion their collaborative efforts throughout difficult discussions with upper management. The recognition didn't just bring happiness, it symbolized that they had not only navigated adversity, but had emerged stronger. Moments like these cemented their trust, affirming that confronting uncomfortable truths could yield unbounded growth. As Sarah gazed at Mike, beaming with pride at his achievement and newfound confidence, it was a reflection of her own evolution. She recognized her own achievements, firmly situated in a position of respect. No longer merely a supportive figure, she stood as an innovator, a leader, someone deserving of acknowledgement for the hard work that shaped their family. Weeks later, during a team celebration marking the successful rollout of their initiative, Sarah felt a profound sense of belonging, a realization that their struggles had paved the way for immense achievement. Surrounded by her colleagues, she articulated an impromptu toast. To our path forward. May we always embrace collaboration, vulnerability, and the courage to confront the truths that drive us toward greater heights. The clinks of glasses reverberated warmth and camaraderie, further establishing the mark they had made. In that moment, surrounded by her team and family, Sarah was overwhelmed by pride, not just for Mike's accomplishments, but for her own journey as well. She had transformed her narrative from doubt to purpose, defining her role not just within the confines of the office, but as an integral partner in life. With the taste of triumph fresh on her lips, she took a moment to absorb the joy around her. She had achieved more than she ever thought possible, realizing her professional aspirations alongside nurturing an unshakable bond with Mike. The urgency for status had dissolved. Instead, what mattered was the testament to their evolution, a couple who had faced adversity with transparency and courage, now standing tall, ready to face the unknown that awaited beyond the horizon. Now more than ever, she understood how crucial it was to persist, to advocate for one's worth. This was the moment Sarah was ready to embrace the essence of triumph blended with tranquility, proof that true achievement lay not only in accolades, but in the clarity of one's identity and purpose. So, embrace your journey. Take your step toward winning. You need to subscribe now to stay updated on more transformative stories. Leave a like now to help us keep reaching those who inspire change. Comment your reactions, because your thoughts matter, and let us dive into discussions that spark growth. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see the power of personal transformation. Your support counts, especially when it comes to uplifting these authentic narratives for everyone to witness.